Hi, I'm Bernie Wall, the volunteer at the Museum of Women's History, and today I'm here with Amy Grandpre. Amy is the Horticulture Assistant at the Yellowstone County Extension Office. Hi, Amy.
Hello.
Welcome.
Hello.
So, what brought you to Montana, first of all?
Well, originally it was my husband's employment.
Okay.
We had started out in Bowling Green, Kentucky, and he was able to work there part of the season, but the rest of the season he was up at actually Red Rock Refuge
Okay.
doing work as a zoologist, and he ended up getting a job in Billings with somebody that had a private waterfowl collection, and we came quickly post-haste from there.
And what exactly does your position mean? What do you do?
Originally, the position is kind of a break off of the ag agent's position. As Billings area kind of expanded and stuff like that, the ag agent wasn't able to keep up with the urban calls and keep up with agriculture too. So the kind of a break off point there was that they need someone to handle just the urban questions. And so that's kind of where the horticulture assistant program started.
Do you get a lot of urban questions? Do you have people calling you, emailing you?
Yes. Lots of that, and yes, with the onset of email, we have lots of that going on too. Yes, sometimes in the summertime, I can have maybe as many as 40 calls a day.
Really?
So it can get pretty busy, yeah.
Are your calls mostly just about plants or the soil?
Pretty much all phases of horticulture, everything from insects, we do vegetables, fruits, pest control in the home, lawn care, landscaping, the whole bit.
But you don't actually go out and perform those duties.
No, thank you very much.
And now I've heard people call you the bug lady. Mm-hmm. What does that just sounds creepy. So what does that mean?
Well, the bug lady is just a result of a lot of people come in with their insects to identify them. And ironically, we have some pretty interesting bugs here. If anybody's interested, look online for a Jerusalem cricket. And when I saw my first one being from Oklahoma, it was quite startling because I actually played a game when I was a kid called Mr. Cootie.
Okay.
And this is Mr. Cootie alive and walking. So it was very interesting to see one of those. But that was something that kind of came as a result of that, people coming in and looking for the bug lady. And then it actually kind of changed a little bit more as I started doing what's called the Awesome Bug Show, and that's where I go to the elementary schools and show the kids the collection, because of course I have a wonderful collection with all these bugs that have come in.
And how do people bring them into you? Do they just put them in a tissue paper? And
Some of them are tissue papers crushed and beyond knowledge to see what they are. Others are in bottles. If they come into my office, I try to encourage people to put them in a bottle with some rubbing alcohol so that they're preserved. Some of them are living, some of them are not, so just any way they come in.
What is your most prized bug, the one that you're most proud of or most unique? Or
I think I would probably want to go with a mantid fly. A mantid fly actually looks like you've taken the front half of a praying mantis and glued it to the back half of a yellow jacket.
that sounds splendid.
Doesn't that sound fun? Yeah. Don't see many of them, but they're kind of a special bug.
Do they sting then?
They don't sting.
They don't sting.
Nope, they don't sting.
So there is a Master Gardener program, alive and well in Billings.
Yes.
And before we get into what exactly a Master Gardener program is, how do people get involved in this? I mean, but I hear people talk about the Master Gardener program, and then I'll hear you tell me what it is, but how would I actually get involved in it if I want to? Because it seems, to me, Master Gardener seems really exclusive. Like it's just this little cobalt of people that are just special gardeners, but pretty much anyone can be a Master Gardener, can't they?
Anybody that has an interest in gardening or landscaping. I think the big thing is that the Master Gardening program is keyed towards the region that it's presented in. So you're not going to get stuff from Florida or California or stuff. It's from Montana.
Oh, okay.
And it's research-based from Montana State University in Bozeman. So the information is very much for, just our area. The big thing is it's usually coordinated through the Extension Service, so people can contact the Extension Service. We will be doing some advertising here probably in the next month or so for folks to keep an eye out on the radio, newspaper, stuff like that to connect up with us. But anybody can participate. It's just basically if you have an interest in growing things that you're our kind of people.
And what does your class involve? What do your Master Gardener people do?
Well, the Master Gardener program starts with classes. Right now there's a level 1, which is 8 classes.
Okay.
And then there's a level 2 that follows, which is another 8 classes. And that usually starts in February. and kind of carries on through just about the end of June or so. And that's kind of basic to the education process. And then after that, we have what's called the volunteer program. And that is where the Master Gardeners are able to plug into the community and serve there, not only educating but also helping. And normally it's with nonprofit organizations to kind of give them a little boost with landscaping and stuff.
Well, where are some places people would see Master Gardeners that they probably see them all the time and don't realize they're Master Gardeners?
Well, I think the biggest visibility we have is at the farmers market on Saturday. During the summer months, we do have an excellent farmers market now, and Master Gardeners are there to help answer questions and try to do what they can to help people there.
So it's kind of like playing Stump the Master Gardener.
There you go.
Okay. And the fair, do you have a booth at the fair as well?
We do have an information booth at the fair. And if people have organizational meetings or different get-togethers, we can also come to those as well. But those are the big ones. Yeah.
Can you volunteer as a Master Gardener when you're still learning, or do you have to have graduated?
Yep. Actually, we had a Master Gardener that had his volunteer hours done before the classes were finished. So
Really?
Yeah. The Master Gardener title is just something that lets people know that you are involved a little bit more than just the general, gardener type of thing. And again, several places to volunteer. We do Zoo Montana. There's a Care After School program. One of my favorites, of course, is the Metro Demonstration Garden. Big advocate of square foot gardening. I think that is going to definitely be a big thing in our future as far as food growing and stuff like that. And
so for people who aren't familiar with it, what is square foot gardening?
Square foot gardening, if you basically took a general garden, 30 foot by 30 foot, and they usually are very intense. If you think about it, 50% of that garden is paths. So you're not even using 50% of your garden to start with.
Oh.
What square foot gardening does is you reduce that to 1/4 that size, and you don't lose any production. Because what you're doing now is instead of planting a row of crops and then having a path and then another row of crops, you're actually planting your plants the same distance apart as you are in the row. So if you have carrots, 2 inches apart, you also have them 2 inches apart this way. And the idea is that you put your paths or basically around the outside of a 4-foot square area. Or 4 foot by however long you want to do. The idea is you don't step in that garden bed, so you don't compact the soil.
Okay.
And so that's the way you can grow all these things closer together without having a problem. Because usually you think, well, you can't grow everything together so tight. And it's wonderful for many reasons. One of the biggest ones is that when they're growing closer together like that, you're competing with the weeds very effectively.
Oh.
You don't have compacted soil, so when you do have a weed, it's no big deal. You can pull it out fairly easily. You can put a lot of stuff. Like if you look at a patch of carrots in 1 square foot, you can plant 16 carrots.
Really?
And so that's just a lot. And if you're looking at covering or extending the season, it's so much easier to cover a very small area compared to, 30-foot rows that are, pretty hard on both sides.
Now, do you have that type of information on your website?
On the website, we do have some pictures of the demonstration garden. We do have brochures that go into a little bit more details about the spacing for plants and things. So if anybody's interested in that, we'd be happy to line them up with it.
And what is your website?
The website is right here. And it's a long one, but I'll let you go into that.
It is a long one.
Yes.
And it is I have it.
Do you want me to read it off the screen?
Nope.
Okay.
It is co.yellowstone.mt.gov/extension/horticulture.index. And that's long enough. And but I think if you go to the Yellowstone County too, I think you can probably narrow it down from there.
Oh, you bet.
And what other types of things? Your website has a lot of other interesting things for people as well, I believe.
Well, we try to give them some information. I do have some information on there about pruning trees, especially if you look at things that are damaged in the wintertime. We try to give a little bit of information on the monthly things. I do have something called the Garden Grapevine, and I've put it online, and that's just a month-by-month checklist to kind of give us an idea of what things need to be done. We do have a shorter growing season here, as you well know, and so lots of things have to be accomplished in a fairly quick order, so it helps to have that stuff available.
And the pruning, when That's a good point. When do people prune? Do they prune in the winter, the summer, the spring? When's the best time to prune?
Pruning is kind of depends on what you're dealing with. If you're dealing with damaged trees, it's pretty much you got to deal with it at that time. But as far as just general pruning, normally it's done when the trees are dormant.
Okay.
And dormant usually is indicated by the leaves have fallen off.
Okay.
Ideally, it's probably the best to prune them when they're not frozen. So March and April are a great time in our area to kind of finish up heavy pruning if you can.
Okay.
You can do some light pruning during the spring months. It does get a little bit more complicated because of the leaves are in the way and you can't quite see, you know, your structures and things like that. But that's kind of the general guidelines. Now, if you have spring flowering bushes,
Okay.
normally you don't want to prune those because those are going to be the branches you remove is going to be where your blooms are. So if you can wait until after they're done blooming, like first of all comes to mind is your lilacs, wait until after they're done blooming and then prune them. And that way you can enjoy your lilacs and prune too.
For people who are not from Montana, the people who are in states that actually have water, and they want to plant.
Yes.
What type of plants do you recommend if someone had just moved here and they're like, oh, I'm used to having water and I'm not used to such a dry climate?
Yeah.
What would you recommend if someone wanted to start a garden?
The gardening process and the landscape process, there are plants, of course, that are a little bit more drought tolerant. For landscaping, we do have a wonderful bulletin that goes into something like that. So if they're interested in that, there's definitely things for that to help out. I think the big thing is preparing their soil so that it has the ability to not only nourish but hold moisture. We have a lot of sand and a lot of clay. Clay can hold moisture a long time, but there's not much there to keep a plant healthy. So it's always a good idea to start there, to try to build up your soil to get it the best condition that you can. Square foot gardening I love because when you're 1/4 the size of a regular garden, it's not a big deal to water because you don't have that much area to water anymore, and it's wonderful for drip irrigation. So nice, simple system to drip irrigate, and you've got it made.
How does someone test their soil? I mean, if someone bought a new house and they don't know what kind of what their soil's like, how would they test that to know what to plant there?
Well, just off of the cuff, we have alkaline soils here. Usually our pH is 8 and above, so that's a start.
Okay.
The other thing is we always need organic material, and we have either sandy soil up under the rims or we get into the really gumbo stuff in the valley. So there are a few places that have really nice soil, but most of it all needs to have some organic stuff added to it. There are several soil testing facilities in the Billings area. I would encourage people to look those up or give me a call. We can sure help you with that. Normally, if you have like a general garden that you want to test, what you do is you would try to dig in the ground, lift up a clump of soil and take kind of the center square inch down the shovel from the tip back to the handle, and that would be kind of a core. And that represents your topsoil and down to where the root zone would be. And then mix several of those together and bring in about a pint jar's worth. And they do say it's very important not to dry it in an oven or heat it because you don't want to change the chemistry of the soil.
Okay.
But dry it, just generally dry it, and then bring it in. And usually for $30 or somewhere in there, you can get a soil test. And it'll tell you what your pH is, what your salt hazard is, electrical conductivity, what nitrogen, phosphorus, potash you need. And there's a little transition there. If it's a garden, they would have different recommendations than they would for a lawn. So both of those areas can be handled.
And if someone was growing a garden and say they were growing a garden and their plants, their leaves, like their tomato leaves, turned yellow, would they be able to call you and you might be able to give them an idea?
Absolutely. That's absolutely right. That's what I'm for, is to help people with all those kinds of problems. Tomatoes are a big thing. We all try to get those July 4th tomatoes. This year didn't happen, of course. But that was something that we have had a lot of diseases this spring because of our wet spring. So always there to help people with identifying different diseases and things. And it's a challenge sometimes. And things that I can't identify, we do have a service that we can send those samples to the pathology lab in Bozeman.
Really?
Or insects I can't identify. I'm pretty good at those. So,
I'm sure.
But that's something that we can always follow up with. We can send it to the pathology lab in Bozeman, and they can help us.
So kind of like a CSI crime lab for plants.
There you go.
Oh, there you go.
And plant identification. Every once
Okay.
in a while we'll have stuff that I have no idea what they are. So again, we can send them there and get the answer one way or the other.
Well, when you moved up here to Montana, were there a lot of plants that you had never heard of or you didn't know what to do with, or?
I was educated in Oklahoma, so completely different planet. So I had to relearn bugs. again, 2-month longer growing season I came from. So it was very interesting to learn kind of in crunch time, well, these folks have to get with it and they have to get serious, and not that much rotating or getting into different secondary crops and things like that. However, you still can do it to some extent, but yeah, lots of re-education going on here.
When you first moved here, was there a plant that you had never heard of before, and now you've decided that's one of your favorite plants, or a plant you'd never heard of and you still don't like that plant, or?
I think probably the one that really fascinated me most was the bittersweet nightshade. And a lot of people think, wow, it's a beautiful plant. It's got kind of like a horsehead ivy to it. It is toxic.
Oh.
And it's a very vigorous growing vine. You'll see it growing up inside of trees, especially evergreen trees. And it has the most beautiful, it starts out with green, little pepper-looking pods on it that eventually turn a beautiful red. If it wasn't that kind of a weed, it'd be a beautiful plant for in our yards and gardens, but it's not a good thing. So, but never saw one of those before. So, fascinating plants.
What about all the grasshoppers that we've had over the past couple of years? Are we going to have more grasshoppers as the years go on, or?
I wish I could look into my crystal ball. I tell you, this year I thought we had it made because we had such a long, wet spring, and normally that is the lineup you need to get rid of the grasshoppers because they catch a disease when they're cold and wet in the spring. That should wipe them out. Didn't work. So I don't know.
Okay. Well, I didn't know if there was like a prediction thing. That
Normally they have cycles, and I think that last year was supposed to be one of the worst years, and I think this year was right up there with it. So, yeah. It's
And
hard
what
to
do you
say.
tell people when people call you up and say, oh, I've got these grasshoppers all over my house. I don't know what to do with them.
Yep.
Help me get rid of them. What do you tell them?
I think the first thing is if they have plants, we did have some situations where plants were they would not allow a green thing to grow on them. So one of my pat answers is to tell them, if you've got some old sheer curtains, just drape that poor little plant.
Oh, really?
So that there's no way that they can get to them. Or if you have a square foot garden, now this works really well, you could actually drape, things over those square foot beds after you scared the grasshoppers out and have a pretty good situation. Otherwise, there's pesticides you can spray. There's organic ones out there too. It's just kind of an ongoing battle. I know no-see-um, there's a NOLA bait that you can get that's actually kind of a bait that contains that disease that they get that you can put out, and that's real helpful. Kind of tough though if you're just one little island and 5 billion acres of grasshoppers. So if you can get your neighbors and friends to kind of help out and do it as well, that helps. Always a good idea if you can to spray fence rows, areas where especially if you've got a big field on the other side to kind of give yourself a barrier. Okay. There are a lot of insecticides that you wouldn't want to use on your garden, but you could actually go around the barrier around the outside of the garden and spray with that, and give yourself 10 or 15 feet around that and protect it somewhat. So there are some things to help, but this year was a pretty bad year, I think, with whatever anybody did.
Well, and since you're known for gardening, what do you have in your garden? What's a typical garden for you? And is your garden, since you're so into square foot, is your garden all square foot?
Mine is all square foot. As soon as I saw it, actually, Mel Bartholomew is the person that's kind of the keynote person to kind of push this. And by the way, he's doing a wonderful job with spreading it around the world, because if you do a square foot garden, you don't have to have all this huge equipment and cost to run, all these acres and acres of field. So it enables people to do things if they're limited too. But I've got 5 4-foot by 15-foot beds. Wow. One of them is totally raspberries, and then the rest of them, I usually have a melon patch with watermelons and cantaloupe. And then this year we did corn and tomatoes. I still can and freeze, so I have all those little goodies too, green beans and carrots and just the standard things.
And I think the other extension agent's office I think Bernie has a thing about canning, I believe.
Yes.
So I think if you do want to learn how to can, I think the extension, your local extension office again.
Yes.
I don't think a lot of people utilize the extension office because I don't think they realize what you guys are there and what you guys can do.
And that it's a free service. I think that's the big thing. And Bernice Mason, she's the home consumer science agent, and yes, anything to do with canning and freezing. She also does a great job with financial planning, just all kinds of facets to her job. So you bet we'll probably find somebody for you for whatever you have.
And if I was to come wandering down to your office, other than your bugs, which sound lovely, and I don't want to miss those, but other than your bugs, what would someone find? Do you have pamphlets there? Do you have, what do you have?
Well, we have lots of pamphlets. We also have an ag agent,
Okay.
Steve Lackman, and Ronnie Baker's our 4-H agent. And we do have a couple wonderful secretaries to greet you, and lots of bulletins on just about everything. We have lots of the horticulture ones, of course, and agriculture and canning and freezing and stuff. I know at the farmers market too, we try to make some of those available for the ones that are most often requested. So you bet we'll probably have something for you in paper too.
Well, that works. That's nice. That's good to know, because it's I think that it's sad when there are offices and people can go and use them and people don't know they're there, or they know they're there and they just don't know what's
Don't know what
there.
that is.
Exactly.
And I think too, for people that are into recipes and stuff, Bernice Mason has wonderful collections of all kinds of everything, from the zucchini recipe book, again for free. Just come in and ask for it. She usually does a holiday thing so that people can come for a lunch and learn about certain holiday gifts and partying and stuff like that. So lots of information there.
And where are you located?
Well, we're located at the first floor of the county courthouse in room 106.
And so people can just wander on in
That's
and
absolutely right.
poke around. And
Yep.
is there anything, do gardeners do anything in the winter other than look at their seed catalogs?
Seed catalogs are big this time
Yeah,
of year.
I'm
Yes,
sure.
they are. I think the biggest thing that's probably going to get started here is the Care After School program. And so we have a group of master gardeners that go to the elementary schools and help to teach the kids a little bit about gardening and what the plant growth system is and all kinds of different things. So that's, I think, the biggest thing that we do in the wintertime.
Do they grow them in little paper cups like
They're
kids?
paper cups. We have the little paper cups with the grass in there with the hair. I think the neatest thing that we've been kind of looking at playing with is taking a Ziploc bag and then putting a little piece of tissue in there and putting green bean seeds in there, and then you can tape that to your window. And you can actually see, of course, through it and see the roots developing, what the stems look like.
Really?
And it's a very nice demonstration for just observing a plant's growth.
Even if your window's cold, it will still grow?
I think it'll still, as long as it's not freezing. Yeah.
Oh, that would be fun to see.
You bet.
I think I want to go home and try that.
It would be fun.
And are these after-school programs, are these all master gardeners? Are they you? Are they?
They're mostly the master gardeners. We've got a group of them that's kind of their project. And, again, we do have different projects. I try really hard to make the master gardener program user-friendly. So if you don't want to teach little kids, that's fine. We'll find another place for you. So try to keep it very diversified so that there's plenty of opportunity to do something that you kind of like.
And what is the fee to become a master gardener if you wanted to become one, as opposed to, I don't want someone watching going, I want to be a master gardener, I want to take the class, and it's not going to cost me anything because the extension agent doesn't.
Yeah.
So they should know that.
They should know that. The first level is $150. And if they do their volunteer hours, which is a 20-hour volunteer return, they would get a $20 reimbursement on that. And that includes the $50 handbook. And the handbook is, again, Montana-based, and it's got all the information. It's a great resource. I mean, if you just bought that, you'd probably be have a good reference point for Montana. Level 2 is $100. And with that, if you do your 30 hours of volunteer service, then you would get $30 back for that. And again, it's very, very easy to use. We basically watch Toby Day. He's the state extension specialist in Bozeman, and he's the one that pretty much teaches most of the class. We do have some specialists that do get in there too, but he pretty much coordinates the class program, and just kind of watch his programs. And
By watch his programs, it's not him, it's on a TV,
it's on
isn't
a TV,
it?
correct, right. This year Toby's going to try to do level 1 with DVD discs, professionally made, so that's pretty good. We have connected up with internet connection online, and works pretty good, but sometimes the sound quality isn't good because he's in a classroom setting.
You're right.
And so this is hopefully going to be a better way to kind of clean it up a bit.
And do you take the classes too?
I'm at every one of them.
Are you really?
Yes. As a coordinator, I like to be there and meet the kids, the kids, the students, the participants, yes. And
I think that's my
a
fault
good
you're
time.
calling them
That's
kids.
right. We're all kids, right?
Yeah. I know that my husband's master gardener, and he's been doing it for years, and he really enjoys it. And that's where the kids came in, because I always refer to them as Amy's master gardener kids. But I know he's really enjoyed it, and he's encouraged other people to do it. And the square foot gardening, I know that's a big passion of his as well. Me, I'm more of I'm a pick planter.
Yep.
Plant that,
That's
and
right.
I'm done. And I really admire people who can plant and who do take the time, who do take the patience, and because I don't think I'd want to get dirty, and not that I mind getting dirty, but I don't think I want to play with the worms and figure out soils and
all that other stuff. Yep.
Is there anything for the upcoming year that you think can suggest to someone that if they haven't planted, that might be a fun thing for them to plant, or something new to try in their garden?
I'm always encouraging people to be very aware of what they see and what they like. It's kind of like our clothes and our shoes. Everybody has their different ideas of what they like. And a lot of times if you're driving down a neighborhood, first of all, if you see something that's really growing and thriving and looking great, there's probably a real good chance it's going to make it in your yard too. So that's always a good idea. I always, too, if you're going to do landscaping, is to kind of get a basic idea of what landscaping is. I know if you're looking from inside your home, you want to make sure that you kind of extended the landscape outside as another room. So you want to make it very appealing from the inside, but you don't want it to be dangerous outside. So your security is a big thing. You don't want a bunch of big bushes and stuff that block the entryway and stuff so that you can't see in case there is some problems coming. But just a lot of stuff is look around, see what you like, try to adapt it to your situation, keep color in mind, keep texture in mind. Height, I think the biggest mistake I see is everybody plants that beautiful, cute little spruce tree right next to the foundation, and in 10 years you can't see anything. But remember the mature size of a plant when you plant it, because that's going to be, again, where it's heading. So you want to make sure you've got the right plant in the right place. I think in Montana, one of the biggest heartaches I have is everybody is great at lawn watering, but they don't do their trees and shrubs. And we don't have much forgiveness here. We average maybe 10 to 12 inches on a good year of rainfall, so that means the rest of it has to come from us. And irrigating, I know most people will water maybe 10 or 15 minutes every other day or so. Well, if you think about a tree root system, that's down a good 12 to 16 inches, and that 1/4 inch that you put on the lawn isn't going to get down there at all. So we end up having a lot of suffering trees. And so the big thing I encourage people to do is if you're planting a tree, be sure to keep in mind that the bigger the tree is, the more water it needs. And you need to really water nice and deeply, especially at the drip line area. And keep monitoring it. I think that's the biggest challenge is, well, how do we monitor it? And I should have brought it. I've got the little gadget. It's called a moisture meter. People use them all the time for their house plants, but they work outside just as well. And what you do is basically go out there, push it in the ground at the drip line. If it says wet, you walk away. You're good for another day or two. Keep checking it. Generally, if you can water a good 2 or 3 inches your trees once a month, that's a good thing. It helps.
Well, thank you very, very much, Amy. I learned a lot.
Oh, well,
and
thank you.
If you'd like to contact Amy, you can give her a call at 256-2828, and she'd be happy to answer your questions, and be kind of neat if someone could bring a bug that you haven't seen before. That'd be kind of fun.
I'm waiting.
So thank you very much, and we'll see you next week.